Thank you very much, everybody. Some wonderful presentations today. Great. So if it comes to marketing, everybody's trying to market themselves, whether it's online or if it's going to a meeting. So a lot of the stuff that we've heard today around social media, around marketing, is all the initial lead generation. But for the majority of SMEs, we're still going to have to go and do front-facing conversations. We're still going to have to get up on stage. We're still going to have to present. We're still going to have to go to sales meetings. So if I was to sum up what we do in one image, it would be this. And I'd like to ask you guys, what do you think is different in this picture to the majority of meetings that you see? Anybody? What's unique about this picture? Yes, exactly. They're not looking at their phones. There's agreement. So we don't really see a lot of this in presentations, in meetings, in sales meetings. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what Audience Alive is trying to do. So we really want you guys to change the way that people present, the way people communicate, and the way people sell. We want you to be change agents, and we want you to disrupt the way we do that. So one of the numbers that really stands out to me on this one is this number here, 80%. So 80% increased sales by using an effective pitch deck. So how many of you out there have an effective pitch deck? So if you're in sales or you're in marketing, can your presentation be better? Can it be more engaging? Can it be more dynamic? I would presume it probably could. Put up a show of hands whose pitch deck can be better. Who can sell better? So a lot of the time what we see with presentations, we see a lot of on-screen text, people doing the second one, and subsequently a bored audience. So what we try to do is we try to help you create compelling content, improve your delivery, interactivity, so in creating engagement, and what we hope will happen is that you get an audience alive. So we really want to try to stay away from these 10 things that amateur people say when they're presenting. So if we talk about first impressions, I don't want to get up on stage and say sorry, or I didn't have enough time to prepare, or you might not be able to read this, because automatically it's telling the audience that I'm not confident in what I do. So I'm not giving myself the best opportunity that I can. So if any of these are in your initial presentation, become aware of it and remove it from your speech or from your communication. Because really you only have a few minutes to draw your attention in of your audience. So again, if you're going to a meeting, if you're going to a big sales meeting or you have a big pitch, you really only have 20 minutes to draw the attention. So you want to get your core message across in that time. So how do we do that? How do we get our message across? They did a study on engagement, and they found that around the 40-minute mark, there was a spike in engagement in most meetings. Does anybody know why? Exactly. So if I use the word, I'm going to conclude, everybody picks their head up out of their phones and says, whoa, 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 what did he say? He's concluding? I wasn't listening. So if we use the word conclude more often, we might get people's heads out of their phones and their attention back up on the stage, or their attention towards you. So using engaging words that are going to draw the audience in to listen and to want to learn more about what you're saying. This gentleman's name is Guy Kawasaki. He used to be a venture capitalist. He was chief evangelist for Apple. And he's seen many people come to him pitching at him. And one day he just went off on a rant. And I want you to, there's only 3 numbers that you take away from today. It's the 10, 20, 30 rule. So have a listen.
I will tell you, though, I have another theory about what causes Meniere's disease. I am a venture capitalist. By definition, it means that I have to listen to pitches day in and day out. And day in and day out, entrepreneurs come to me and they pitch me, and they have 60 slides in a pitch. And in that 60 slides, they're convincing me that all they need is 1% of the market, that they have first mover advantage, that they have patents pending, that they have a unique, proven team with a proven technology in a proven market. Every one of them, whether it's for shrimp farming, fabless semiconductor, social networks, every one of them says that. And because I have to listen to such crap, I have a ringing in my head. I'm going deaf and I get dizzy. So before there's an epidemic of Meniere's disease in the venture capital industry, I came up with the 10-20-30 rule. This is the 10-20-30 rule. You should have 10 slides in your PowerPoint pitch. 10, not 50. I don't care if you have curve jumping, paradigm shifting, P2P, Google AdWords, social network, optimized, SQL-based way to sell dog food online. 10 slides. That's all we can handle. Those 10 slides you should be able to give in 20 minutes. You may have a 1-hour meeting, but you're using a Windows laptop. It's going to take you 40 minutes to make it work with the projector. All right? 20 minutes. And the smallest font you should use is 30 points. You see 20, 14, and 12. You should use 30 points for 2 reasons. First, the kind of people you're pitching to looks like that. The second reason is by having a 30-point font, you can put a lot less text. This forces you to actually know your presentation and just put the core of the text on your slide. If you need to put 8 points or 10 points fonts up there, it's because you don't know your material. If you start reading your material because you don't know your material, the audience is very quickly going to figure out that you are a bozo. They're going to say to themselves, this bozo is reading his slides. I can read faster than this bozo can speak. I will just read ahead.
So that's the 10-20-30 rule. So 10 slides delivered over 20 minutes with no font size less than 30. If you just take those 3 numbers away today, it will dramatically change the way you present. So we've all heard of death by PowerPoint. It's a very negative connotation around it. People are fed up by it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to change it. This gentleman is not actually dead, but he is asleep at an event. So people are coming ready to disengage. This lady came along and we said to her, this gentleman, sir, is this your wife? She said, no, darling, I'm from Texas. It cost me $3,000 to be here. So she's knitting at an event. So people are coming to events. They're going to these big presentations ready to disengage. They don't want to be there. They know that the slides and the content isn't going to be good. And this is why. Because these are the kind of slides that people are using in their presentations. Bad use of font, bad use of imagery. Everything's wrong about this. So what we want to do is we want to stop bad presenters, and we want to give ourselves the best opportunity. And this gentleman knew how to do that. Steve Jobs is one of the most iconic presenters. He's obviously very articulate and very powerful in presenting Apple's story and his own story. People are no longer allowing us to take their time away from them. One of the reasons why I like presenting in Saudi the most is because if they don't like what you're saying, they get up and leave. So it's great. You know where you stand. You know you need to change your presentation. Slides are nice, but we need to make them more compelling. We need to make them more dynamic. How can I draw the audience into what I'm saying? So graphs are nice, but how do I make it a little bit more engaging? So simple animations will allow you to bring your slides in, bring the graph, and then bring the airplane across. So little simple animations can really change the look and feel of your presentation. Again, drawing our audience into us and keeping them engaged. Again, simple little animation here, bringing in a timeline to present and tell your story. People like to see that you're in the region for quite some time, and they want to know that you're committed. Using infographics to get key numbers across. And interactive maps as well, maybe showing them where you're located in the region or across the world. showing that you've expanded and that you're committed to the company and committed to expansion as well. So we quickly mentioned Steve Jobs, and there's lots of great presenters out there, but I think if we were to hone in on one person, it would be him. And I really want to just break down how he presents and take away some key messages from it. So the iPhone was very powerful, and Apple is very powerful not just because of its features and functionality, but also in its ability to tell its story. So Apple is very good at storytelling. So again, I want to come back a little step and say that marketing is really powerful and it has to be done, and it creates leads. But for us based in the UAE, where a lot of us are SMEs, a lot of us like to have that face-to-face meeting. So this is only the initial part where we're creating that lead, but then we're going to meet somebody and we're trying to sell the product. So we're trying to build a connection, build rapport. You really have to have conviction in your message. You really have to believe in what you're selling. Some people might say to me, yeah, but I'm selling a software, or I'm selling something that I'm not very passionate about. In that case, you really want to get your own personality across. So we want to be able to tell our own story and maybe map it around it. So we want to be able to give across a bit of our personality into our messaging. So let's break it down into 3 acts. Having an overarching sense of purpose about your company or about your goals will really help you to deliver a much more impactful message. Storytelling is obviously a really powerful thing. It's a real buzzword at the moment, but storytelling allows you to tell a story that's a lot more memorable. People will always remember stories. In Ireland, we call it Shannicky or Shcaly, which is storytelling. And we would sit around the fire with our grandparents and they would tell us stories. And that's how a lot of cultures is passed through as well, through storytelling. So I want you to think in your next presentation, in your next sales meeting, in your next team meeting, anything that you're communicating, is there a way that I can wrap this up in a story that makes it a little bit more memorable? I really want you to think with the end in mind. So going back to knowing what it is that you want from this meeting, knowing if I leave right now, what is it that I want the audience to take away? So thinking with the end in mind and then working backwards. A lot of the time when it comes to presentations, people don't put enough time into practice. Practice doesn't make perfect, but practice makes better. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to put in a lot of time into thinking, and actually a lot of people don't really do that. If someone says you have a presentation, we just jump into writing it. But I want you to stop, think about it. I want you to say, is there a story that I can wrap into this? What is it that I really want from this message? Then we can sketch it out, and then we'll script out what we're going to say. So then we write our script and we throw it away. If you try to learn off notes, off by heart, what will happen is you will create performance anxiety, because then you're trying to remember something. You want it to be a lot more natural. So definitely write a script. I would definitely recommend that. But then once you have it all, learn the core message and then throw the script away. So people are always shocked by these numbers. 90 hours work going into 30 slides seems like a lot. Who has 90 hours to spare? But if you really break it down and think about it, 90 hours is going into thinking. I'm going to think about what I'm going to write. Then I'm going to map it out. And then I'm going to do my script. Then I'm going to start building my slides. And then I'll put in the practice. So you can see where those hours come up. I remember the first time I presented in my college, it was my master's in project management, and I had to sit down, and I spoke for 15 minutes, and I sat down to the gentleman beside me, and I said, what did I say? And he said, well, you spoke about sustainability, you spoke about project management. I had no idea what I said, because I got so nervous when I was up on the stage that I had no idea. I was just in flight or flight. Fight or flight. Tongue twister. So when we look at Apple, when they're selling, simplicity is key. Less is definitely more. So let's think about that. How can we remove the clutter in our presentation? Sticking to the rule of 3. The rule of 3 allows us to create a pattern, and it makes it a little bit more memorable. So if you can go into a presentation and say to yourself, what 3 things do I want people to come away with today? Is it the 10, 20, 30 rule? Is it that I want them to maybe connect with me on LinkedIn, get their business card, or have a follow-up email, think about the 3 things that you want from each presentation or each sales. And we see it a lot. So 3 is in our childhood a lot. So the 3 blind mice, the 3 little pigs, the 3 bears. So we see it a lot. So we're trying to kind of connect back into our childhood. Filter and eliminate clutter wherever possible. If you look at your presentation deck, you'll probably find that a lot of it is noise. There's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't really have to be there. So I really want you to look at and analyze each slide and think, can I take this away from it? If I remove this paragraph of text, does it dilute my message or does it make it more impactful? Because the majority of us will just go and we'll take our script and we'll just place it onto our slides. And as we found out, people will just start reading ahead of you. So what's the point in being there? Your slides are there to support you. You are not there to support your slides. We want your message to be short and snappy. Think about it like a Twitter headline. So if I'm saying something, I want people to be able to consolidate that message into 4 or 5 words or 1 sentence. So again, we don't want to go off the mark and just start talking. If we're nervous, take a step back, take a deep breath, and then get going again. The power of silence is people will lift their head up out of their phone when the room goes silent because they don't know what's happened. So silence is a really powerful thing to use too. Less is definitely more when it comes to presenting, and Jobs knew this and Apple knew this. Bullet points, please remove them from your presentation. If there's anybody that wants to have a conversation after this with me about bullet points, I'll be happy to discuss it with you. They add no value to your presentation. They do nothing. What a bullet point says to most people is, here's a list of things. They may be important, but none of them is more important than the other. So you don't really have to listen to what they're saying. If there was something important there, they would just have 1 point. And they would tell you, this is important. You need to listen to this. Bullet points distract us. Generally, we'll never read through a list of bullet points. We'll disengage. It's an opportunity to look down and check out our phones. Imagery is a lot more impactful than words. So where can we use or transfer our text to imagery? I want you to think, if I have a paragraph again, is there an image or a metaphor that I can use that can give across the same message? And they actually did a study on this. They found that this percentage of people remembered the word after 72 hours, and this percentage of people remembered the image after 72 hours. So what that says to me is that imagery is a lot more memorable than words. And actually, slides that have lots of words scramble the brain. They confuse the brain because we need to start processing a lot quicker. Sometimes I speak to engineers, I speak to guys from finance, and they say to me, yeah, this is all well and good, but I need to get across a lot of numbers. I need to get across a lot of hard data. So how do we break down complex information and make it a little more impactful? An amateur presenter might use this slide if they're talking about the MacBook Air. But Jobs didn't do that. He used this slide. So simplifying it, because he knows that the majority of people in the room want a laptop that's maybe fast and easy to move around with. And he used a prop to show this as well. He said that a MacBook Air can fit in this envelope. So that's the power of props. I saw the gentleman bringing up his magazine from Source. That's a prop. You brought that up, so people were saying, well, it's something in his hand, and we lifted it up and showing it. So again, using props is a powerful thing to do, and it makes it very impactful. And here's an example of this.
For example, there's more money put into baldness drugs than are put into malaria. Now, baldness it's a terrible thing. And rich men are afflicted. And so that's why that priority has been set. But malaria, even the 1 million deaths a year caused by malaria greatly understate its impact. Over 200 million people at any one time are suffering from it. Means that you can't get the economies in these areas going because it holds things back so much. Now, malaria is, of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. I brought some here so you could experience this. We'll let those roam around the auditorium a little bit. There. There's no reason only poor people should have the experience.
So a very powerful message, but used quite effectively using a prop. So obviously malaria is something that's a real problem in the world, but by using that little prop was able to draw the attention of the audience back into the room. So how do we make numbers a little bit more compelling, or how do we dress them up? So again, Jobs might have talked about the having 5 GB. But what does 5 GB mean to many of us? We don't really know. But when he said it was equal to 1,000 songs, now it's starting to make sense. It's starting to resonate with us. So we often think we need to get hard into numbers, hard into data, hard into the big key numbers, but really we can break these down. So he even went as far as saying that 5 GB is equals to 1,000 songs, and I can put that right in my pocket. So now it's taking that 5 GB and breaking it down into a number that we understand, and then it's visualizing it so I can have that in my pocket. IBM had the same problem. They had a Roadrunner, a supercomputer, and this ran at 1 petaflop. Does anybody know what a petaflop is? Absolutely no idea. So a petaflop is 1,000 of today's fastest laptops. Start to visualize something here. But 1.5 miles higher. So now we're able to break down what a petaflop is in our mind's eye. We're able to start to visualize how powerful that computer is. And actually, a petaflop works at 1 trillion calculations per second. Again, we wouldn't really know what that means, only that we can now visualize it. And other companies in Dubai and the UAE are using this too. So Bern, we're going to talk about compressed air or lights generated. But 16.5 million of lumens light generated. We might not understand what that is, but if they tell us that it's enough to light 10 football fields, now we can visualize that. So now again, it's resonating with us. Where in your presentation are you going to reveal an emotionally charged event? Because when you create emotion, it resonates with the audience, and the audience says, remember this. This made me feel good. Or this was a sad moment, but I remember it was compelling. So where in your presentation can you do that? And that's by wrapping your presentation up in a story or a metaphor or an analogy. We might have heard of the analogy of geese in leadership. Has anyone heard of it before? Yeah. So the one at the front is facing the most wind resistance, so it never stays at the front. So it moves to the back, and the one at the back moves to the front. So they're constantly changing, so not one geese is using as much energy as the rest. They're constantly sharing that load. And one day we were down in Abu Dhabi, and we were speaking to one of the companies, and we said, you know, what metaphor can you use? What story can we use in your presentation that will resonate with the audience? And he said, well, this is very similar to the camel, because the camel at the front is walking in the softest sand. So the one at the front is doing the most work, and it's constantly changing. So the one at the front comes to the back, and the one at the back goes to the front. And when he told his story, some of the older guys in the room were almost crying. It was really beautiful to see. This is the power of storytelling or analogies in your presentation, because it resonates and it lands with the audience. Now something that I know and I can feel that. So how can you do that in your next presentation, in your next sales, or in your next meeting? Again, this is not just about presenting. Marketing we're doing every day. We're marketing ourselves when we're in the lobby speaking to someone, when we're online, when we're at an event, when we're in a sales meeting, when we're in an internal meeting, maybe you want to get promoted. We're always marketing ourselves. And it's been found that people that can communicate and present better do better in their careers. And this saying's a little bit cliche, but it really is the truth. If you can make people feel good, then that's half the battle. You don't want people leaving the room saying, "Oh, that he was quite negative," or I don't really feel. I feel he's just not right. There's something I don't feel good about. People make judgments on the blink of an eye. So when you walk into that meeting, from the first handshake, from the first moment you step in there, people are already processing whether you're a good person, a bad person, a person you want to do business with. Are you competent? Are you not competent? So really we need to bear in mind that people are always judging us. It's human nature. It happens to us. Only when we become aware of it, we're able to correct it. Again, when we release this emotional event, it says to our mind, remember this. Remember that person. They made me feel good. They said something interesting. He was a nice person. Stage presence. Again, practice doesn't make perfect, but it does make it better. You have to get up on the stage. You have to feel what it's like to be up here to understand it. We try to teach people to come away from here because it's a barrier to our communication. We're not as effective when we're standing up here. Yes, sometimes in more formal events we have to stand up there, but try your best to get away. Get out in front of the stage. Move around. Make eye contact. Connect with the audience. And it's the same in meetings too. Using hand gestures to create meaning. Our body language tells a story too. Comedians are very good at using body language. Politicians are very good at using body language. And Jobs knew all this, and that's why he was a truly great presenter. Having an open posture when we're up on stage, again, trying to connect with everybody in the room. In a big room, sometimes it's difficult to do that, to see to the right to the end. Also, sometimes there's light shining in on you. But if you get to the event the day before, you can understand the layout. So I was here yesterday, I came, I saw the room, I got to understand the layout of it, I knew where I would be standing, I knew where the screens would be. So that's given me the attention, given me the time to understand everything in the room and how my voice is going to sound as well. We want to give out information. We don't want to be closed. Sometimes people come up and they say, I'm very happy to be here today, and it's a wonderful experience. And their shoulders and their body language is saying differently. So we really need to become aware of that, bringing your shoulders back. Power posturing is what they call it. And we want to promote ourselves in the best light. I'm confident, I'm happy to be here, and say it with conviction. We don't want to be doing a lot of overly moving of our hands or pointing at people, but really become aware of it. And it's only from getting up and experience it that you can correct it along the way. They did a study and they found that body language and vocal tone stands for this percentage of your total communication. How many of us really do practice when we're going to a presentation, to a sales meeting? 2 hands, 3 hands? No. And I understand, we live in a world where we're constantly connected, we're constantly having to go to meetings, we're constantly having to other priorities. But if you really want to give yourself the best opportunity possible, you have to practice. And I see people do this a lot, okay? So they write out their presentation, they sit down in front of it, and they do this. And then when they get up on stage and they hear their voice for the first time, it scares the hell out of them. Because we're practicing our presentation in our head, and we don't actually hear what our voice sounds like. So doing that, sitting in front of your computer and reading your slides is not practice. You want to stand up, put your presentation on the screen, put it on your laptop, get your clicker out, click on it, walk around the room, feel what it feels like to present. Feel what it feels like to be confident. People always talk about natural presenters. I can assure you I am not a natural presenter. I said the story when I was doing my master's. I got up, I had fight or flight. there was like a mist came over me, and I spoke for 15 minutes. I had no idea what I said. But through practice and getting up, I've been able to learn the skills, and I've been able to become aware of different moments when there's peaks and troughs in the engagement, when sometimes I stutter or I don't know what I'm about to say. So the next time, I learn from that mistake and I change it. So think of communication as a constant feedback loop. So I'm continuously getting feedback from the audience and from myself. Holding something back is a powerful thing in a presentation. If you can see that the person or the audience is going to ask a question, maybe don't explain it to them. Let them ask that question and then give them the answer. That makes it look like you've really thought about what they want from this meeting. They say, oh, well, but what about this? And you already you knew that answer was coming because you left that gap there and you answered it then. That's really compelling to the person and the audience that you're speaking to. One of the things that people often forget about is when they go to a meeting or when they have a presentation, they get up, they speak for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then they get up and they walk off the stage. And they never say to themselves, so what? Why did I just present? What was I actually here for? Was it that I wanted to, connect on LinkedIn? Was it that I wanted to make a sale? Was it that I wanted to meet them in 2 weeks' time? And then they leave and say, oh, I can't believe I didn't say to them, are they interested in coming to my next event? So always ask yourself, so what? Why am I here? What do I want from today? Or have a call to action. So your call to action might be, okay, let me follow up with you later on today, and then we can set out a roadmap for this project. But always close the loop. You open it at the start, and then you close it at the end. One of the words that stands out to me in this is dogma. And dogma means basically buying into some sort of lie. So we often think that presenting is meant to be a scary thing, getting up here. I could never do it. I don't know how you could get up on stage. It's not like that. If you're sitting down at a table amongst friends, it's the same thing. You're just moving it up. I've just came from down here at the table to up here on the stage. I'm still having a conversation with people. And that's one of the other key tricks to being a good presenter, is keeping it conversational. You want to maintain a conversational tone throughout your presentation, throughout your sales meeting. You don't want it to come across like you're a robot or that you've remembered something off by heart and now you're replicating what you learned and you're just saying it back to somebody. Because in that case, why don't you just video it and send it through to them? We're there because we want to build a connection. We're there because we want to build rapport. We're there because we're having a human-to-human interaction. We've done the marketing, we've sold it online, and now I'm here. Maybe it's I want to sign on a partnership. Maybe it's that I want to sign over on a sale. Maybe it's that I want to ask my boss for a pay rise. Maybe I want to get a promotion. So really remember that presenting and presentation skills, it's not really an art. It's just becoming aware of your communication. So if to sum up what we did today, it would be the 10-20-30 rule. It's 10 slides delivered over 20 minutes with no font size less than 30. Keep it simple wherever possible. Remove all the noise from your presentation. Wherever possible, ban the bullet point. I can't even read the next one. And try to create interaction, engagement with your audience. Keep it conversational. So I want you to go back to your team and change the way that they communicate, change the way they present. I want you to be disruptive. So if at the start what we saw was a lot of on-screen text, people doing this, and a bored audience, now what we should have is more compelling content, better delivery in our communication, better interaction and engagement, and subsequently an audience that's alive. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.